Grand Rapids will be in the spotlight tonight as Governor Whitmer delivers her final State of the State address. The city's featured on the program for tonight's address. Art contest winner Brooke, a high school senior from Bay City, included a view of the Grand River and the city's name in the bottom right corner of her illustration. Whitmer is expected to discuss education funding, literacy improvements, and her proposed budget plans. The speech begins at 7 tonight in front of a joint session of the Michigan House and Senate. You can watch the live stream on woodtv.com and WoodTV Plus. And afterwards, political reporter Rick Albin will have the highlights, and News 8's Adriana Doria will have reaction. Joining us live now to give analysis ahead of the governor's address is Dr. John Clark, a political science professor at Western Michigan University. Dr. Clark, thank you so much for being here with us.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, so as we know, this is Governor Whitmer's last State of the State. How will that affect what she'll talk about tonight?
Well, I think the normal pattern for these kinds of addresses is that you spend some time talking about your accomplishments, and then you spend some time talking about your goals, the things that you hope to accomplish in the upcoming year. Unlike the first 7 of these for Governor Whitmer, she's not going to be on the ballot next time, and she doesn't have to sort of look ahead to very much time left to complete her agenda. But there are things that are not yet completed that I'm sure she would like to accomplish, and so no doubt we'll hear some of those tonight during the speech.
Yeah, so talk about, some of her biggest budget priorities she'll outline, and what do you think is most important to Michiganders right now?
Yeah, those are great questions, and I think with regard to the second question, there are a lot of things that folks are paying attention to right now. Certainly the idea of affordability and the cost of things. Some of that's within a governor's control. Some things are not. But are there ways to improve the availability of housing and the affordability of housing, for instance? Certainly in a number of corners of the state, there's concern about data centers and the cost of power that would be required to operate those. And so things like that, I'm sure will be part of the story. And then there are some things where she and the Republicans in the state house, at least, have had some disagreement. And I'm sure we'll hear about a few of those things as well.
Right. As you know, last year, it took months for the budget to pass. What can we learn from that as she talks about, new spending tonight?
Yeah, it was unusually long last year for the Republican-controlled House to get their part of the process done. The governor's already released her proposal for the upcoming year, and so we at least know what her priorities are. I would certainly expect there to be a lot of disagreement about what that should look like. In fact, Speaker Hall, the Republican Speaker of the House, has already said that he's not interested in some of the things that the governor has proposed. But I suspect that we'll hear from her tonight that she wants to work with Republicans in the legislature. She's a former legislator. She's been there. She understands that process, and she understands that things aren't going to be done unless members of both parties in the legislature agree. And so I think her budget proposal was sort of her opening gambit in that negotiation. And I suspect that we'll see outreach toward Republicans tonight, including discussion of a number of things where they did work together. Whether it was the roads package, where they came in with very different ideas about how to fund it, or a variety of other things. So I would expect her to extend an olive branch. But I would also expect things like the budget are going to take some long, tough negotiations to get done.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Clark. And, Whitmer, she has announced her plans after leaving, hasn't announced her plans, what she's doing after office. She's term limited as governor. Do you think she'll run for some other office?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have any inside information. What I can tell you is that she's relatively young, particularly in the age of politics and the age of many of our elected officials. And so it certainly wouldn't surprise me if when some attractive position becomes available, if she throws her hat into the ring. As I said, she has legislative experience, so that could be a seat in the United States Senate should there be an opening sometime soon. Not expecting to see one, but there could be. Could be for some higher office. She has developed something of a national reputation during her 8 years as Michigan's governor, and I could certainly see her as a possible candidate, if not for the presidency at the top of the ticket. I could certainly see her as an attractive candidate for the vice presidency for some other Democratic nominee. What she decides to do in the end of the day is at this point anybody's guess but hers.
We'll see for sure. Dr. Clark, thank you so much for your time.
You bet.
All right.